I'm trying to do here is make a spiral staircase, but I'm having a hard time doing that. So what I might do, or what I did here, is I put a bend a simple to form modifier. So you might be wondering, like, well, what's the big deal with this? Ignore that. So what you could do, let's say you have this here. Here, I rotated this right here. I rotated it on the y-axis, which apparently is not, it's supposed to. Oh wait, that's why. Wrong one. Alright, so I rotated this on the y-axis. I'm just putting this back to normal. Normally I had it like this, and what I did is I rotate on the y-axis half of 45 degrees, because what I'm trying to do is replicate this, which is 22.5. Now you might be wondering, why am I doing it this way? Well, what you could do, as you see here, I made I made like a linked copy here. So what you could do is set this to a 3D cursor, select this, you rotate this on the Y, I just rotate a little bit, and then you could type it 22.5, and then leave it like that. But then what you could do with this copy is you rotate it back down, negative 22.5, so it's straight. So what's cool about doing that is when this is straight, let me move my 3D cursor here, Control S and then just 2 for selected. What you can do is you rotate this in object mode. So don't go inside object, or don't go inside edit mode and do it, because it's going to edit that. So what you can do is go into object mode and then rotate this back down 22.5. Now what's cool is when you edit this one here, it's going to affect this one, which is already rotated. So right now I have a little simple to form modifier. Here, I'll get rid of it. So you can go here to your modifier, the little tool, and then you can go to your simple to form, and you gotta make sure you set it to bend. There's like a bunch of different modes here. I want bend here. Now it doesn't look like much, but what you're gonna do, ignore the rail. Those are the railings. Right now there's no geometry on these. See, there's no tweens here. So once you add them, it'll actually deform. Right now it's literally just saying here, deform from here and just follow that, which is literally just a straight line, because there's no vertices or edges in between. So what you could do is set this to negative 360, but you notice it doesn't entirely go around. But even though you drag this, it doesn't let you go further back, but you can type it in. You kind of think of that as like a limit. But what you can also do is hit Alt-D to make a duplicate linked copy. And what you can do is just come, because whatever you edit here with the vertices and the modifiers, it's going to affect the other ones. So you watch this. See how... Oh wait, hold on. Wait, did I make a copy? I'll do. Let's see. Maybe not. Maybe the modifiers won't do it, but... Maybe the modifiers won't do that. But what you could do is just bring this down. Or make your edits and then you can just duplicate it again. So like delete it and then see if that does it. No, maybe it does. Oh, hold on. Okay. Yeah, so you make your edits here and then you can bring it up. But whatever you're doing, oop, not that one. I don't think modifiers are copied over. I'm sure there's a way of doing it, but anyway, let's say you got those two and you want to use those as like your spiral staircase. You can come down here and say, well, I want to, let's say, where do I have it? See if I save it. Here it is. Let's say I want to apply these. Line it up. I'll just say, well, I want like these here. You know, you make your edits and you just want to make, it would be a lot easier to edit these and like add all like these little, I don't know what you want to call these, like the railing, I don't want to call them standoffs, but you can like make your edits and then any geometry that you add to this probably might look a little strange. Oh, yeah, but it's still a curve. Okay, let's make a duplicate. Click, mesh. See, you know, you join this, and then look what happens, that it joins along here. Now right now it's not gonna line up exactly because it's not connected to the mesh. It's called floating geometry. So right now I can just hit L, select the linked geometry, and I can just move this around everywhere. See, anything I move around will affect the other one. So maybe what you want to do is add more like tweens here. So right now I'm just going to not duplicate, but select these. It'd be easier if I just did from the top. I was just like testing this out. Yeah, I can just delete that. I made a duplicate, so it's fine. Now you're only selecting like maybe a couple of edges here. But what you can do, maybe you've used like other 3D software for 3D modeling. Just select those, and then what you can do is just go to select loops, and then just do a loops, and it'll select those. And I wouldn't hit delete, because if you just delete these, it's gonna break your mesh. But instead you hit X, and then you do dissolve edges. And it also gets rid of the vertices. So right now, See, like just like the rails, now there's no edges in between. So if you do that, it's literally just gonna look like that. So I would just come here, hit Control R, and then you can scroll wheel up, or just add a couple, and then you can just hit Escape, and then you can add your cuts here. See like what, I don't know, 70 looks like. And it just makes it look more smoother. Now right now it's going to show a little bit of nickeling because there's no smooth groups on here yet. That's why you notice each individual face. But if you like right click and show shade smooth, it'll do that. It'll actually average out the normals so you don't see the actual edges when a face ends and another one begins. What I typically do is do this. Now if you look at it, it looks shaded rather oddly. And what's happening is I think I did it in this mesh, but if you go to here, alright, it wasn't on, but if you put shade smooth, if you right click in your mesh, put shade smooth and object mode, without this checked in, what's happening is it's literally putting it's putting the same smooth group, shading smooth group, under one ID, and that's it. But when you put here like auto smooth under normals, you can like tweak it, and you notice the more as you increase the angle, what's happening. So if I turn wireframe on, what's happening is if you measure these angles, it's not quite 90 degrees, but the higher up it goes, let's say I see if you look right here and I'm increasing it, that means this angle right here must be like around 66 degrees. So if you go higher here, it's basically, so let's say I pick, I don't know, 66 degrees. So that's like around here. So it's saying any faces that are literally this and like under, so 65, 64, 30, or hold on, confusing myself. So if it's like 90 degrees here, that basically says anything that is 90 degrees or less, it's going to treat as one ID. Anything that is 80 degrees or less, because you notice right here with this face and these faces right here, it's like 90 degrees, but it's 80 degrees set to 80, and it's a hard edge, so it's got a different ID. So that's why if you play with this, if you set to 0, it's going to be like you have no faces on here, and it's just like before, where you can see the nickeling here. Well, not nickeling, but like individual faces. So for now, I'm just gonna set to 45. I don't have any like smooths on here yet, and I did what, 70? I mean, I'm doing this more to keep it even. So just do that. So what you can do is you literally will just Control R, will summon one edge, and then if you mouse scroll up, it's going to keep adding more edges. Typically, I do Control R, add a couple, and then I just type the number in. You just put 70, I'll do that. And that's like the inner part of like the rail holder, like the staircase and rail holder. Now right now there's nothing on the actual railings, so what you could simply do is just go to edges by hitting 2 and then Control R, add a couple, and then 70, so this is the inner rail, right? Yeah, that's the inner. For your edges, you might want to make sure like they at least line up. Like you don't want to put like 70 on here and then put like, I don't know, 107, some weird number. Because if you like want to connect these, it's gonna be a little bit difficult to do. Like let's say here, I put 70 here. Let's say here, I'm gonna put like, I don't know, like 48. They don't exactly like line up. Like maybe you want to connect this, but then it's like it's all weird and this doesn't, like you have a mid edge right here, which is weird. So you just stick to the same numbers. So, 70, and you have this. So what's cool is, let's say, hey, I want to add this. I don't know, like, let's say like one face, like every other face, I want to add one of these. Now, what I'm noticing here, because if you look at this, let's turn on edge angles. Actually, I don't know if I can see that. Here, let's just do a little duplicate. I did a Shift E, and to make just a quick duplicate, not a linked duplicate, like a Shift E, so I could just simply just go to check mark and apply it. You want to see like how like long the angles are. Just make a duplicate, and then you can come up here in the overlays, and then you can turn on edge length, and you can see that. All right, so it's a little more rectangular. It's not perfect square, but so what you could do, because what's going to happen is it is going to stretch a little bit, like these here. So if I make like something like this, because these edges here on here are a little bit longer, this might stretch out a tiny bit. But if you go here to make something that's like close to a square, you might have to occupy 2 of these each. Because right now if you do one square, like when you finally connect this, like with vertices and everything, if you do one square like on the inner one, it's going to take this and it's probably going to look something like, it's going to look something like this on the inside, which looks a little odd. But if you occupy 2 squares, it'll look similar to this, maybe a little stretched, not a lot. Now right now, these are simply just curves. These aren't even meshes. That's why when you try to join these, you get that message. It's going to say you can't, no mesh data to join. It's because right now, this is a mesh, so polygons, edges, vertices. This are splines. These are actually very popular in programs like AutoCAD because they're mathematically made lines. See, like you can take the tangent handle and move this around. Like meshes, they don't have that. They're just polygons. But what you do when you're done editing it, I always make a backup of it. Let's say you finally make this, because right now if you take the screw modifier off, you just have that. If you're a 3ds Max user, I know every software gives different names, but 3ds Max, they call theirs lathe in their modifiers. Blender, they like calling it screw. I don't know if they have like a dirty mind or something or whatever. But yeah, screw is basically lathe if you're a Max user. So you put that on there, select your axis, because if you select something else, it's going to look, in this case, like a dish or a speaker. That looks like a sad ass excuse of a frisbee. And then, yeah, you put it in the correct axis. What it's doing is it's going in the y-axis. Okay, technically, it's the z-axis here. It's going around, but because I rotated this, technically, if you put everything at 0, it's at that. But right now, it's going over the y-axis. So when you set to the y, that spline, so this, right here, on this axis, a little green dot, it's going to take it and it's going to go around like that. see if you take the angle, you can go downward and you can actually do a partial if you want. Maybe you want only half. Maybe there's like a decoration or something. You just want to mount it to the wall. You could do that. Like have like a flat plane. Bring this back to 90. But in this case, I want a full circle. You just do that. So 360. I think going higher is a bit kind of pointless. Because that means you're literally going over the same faces, so I don't know why you'd want to do that. Yeah, and some of the things I'm learning here, but yeah, some of them go upward. I mean, that's kind of cool, but that's not what I'm looking for. Oh, and the steps. So the steps is basically like the iteration and the Y. So if I set this to, let's say, a 4, there's only going to be 4 faces total going in a 360-degree angle. So you'll have something like this. I mean, maybe that's the design you want. Maybe instead of doing like a full circle, maybe you want this. And you duplicate it, do a mesh. And the way you do is maybe do something like this. Select these. Do that, and then you can come here, select. Do a loop, and then what you can do is right click and do a bevel edges. Maybe you want something like this. Maybe you have like a kind of a cool, like more of a square or a diamond hook if you wanted to. And then what you could do is also, if you're done, you just literally smooth that. I'll smooth, I'm just going to do 45. So you can select that, well, easier to do this. Just Alt X for X-ray, go here and select loops, and then you can do a loop here, and then right click, and then you could do you could do what's called a mark sharp. So that's marking it as like, I don't want this to smooth here, I want it to stop. Because if you look at this, you notice if I turn the edges off, it's perfectly smooth, which is maybe what you want. But if you want like a sharpened edge here, like the smoothing is nice, but I really would love it if there was like a sharper edge here. You can just right click and do a mark sharp. So now it's more of like a jagged edge here. I'm kind of curious what this would look like actually if I did this. Move that over here. At the minute, I try my best not to have floating geometry. Like, I know you could just do something like, make all your stuff here and be like, select these and like, okay, I'm done. And it's like, okay, great, But it kind of, I don't like floating meshes, especially when it comes to lighting, because sometimes you might get weird artifacts with lighting. So what I do is I actually do like a Boolean operation, which is pretty much piercing holes. Let me undo that. That's not what I want. So a Boolean operation is where you can take a shape and you can like punch holes into a geometry. You're doing a union, intersect, or I forgot. There's like 3 operations. I think it's cut. But here, for example, Control Shift S2, cursor is selected. Oh wait, no, Shift A. I'm just gonna do a cube. I'm gonna do a cube. Well, actually. Keep things simple, do a cube, go and move the vertices. Say I want to rotate this. And then, I don't know, let's say I want to do a Boolean. So it's another mod. I'm just duplicating this. So I don't want to do the real one. That. Make it its own instance, because right now It's not its own instance. Alright, that's cool. I thought I duplicated it. It's not linked. If you just shift D. So you can take this. I'm just gonna get rid of that for now. I'm not doing anything with this. Just showing this what a Boolean operation is. So you can either add edges on your own, or if you have like a really like weird shape and you want to like make sure they connect, I'm just gonna add like just subdivide. I'm just my top view. We'll do that. Just something different. Go here, modifier, Boolean. Any of you programmers out there, they all know that means true, false, or 0, 1. So go here, Boolean, and then you select your object, which in this case is the cube.003. Or you can just use this eyedropper. Select that. And see what's happening is when I move this object, can I move it? Let me save my stuff. Oh, I guess you can't move it. I guess you can't move it. Oh, I guess you can. It just takes a while. Well, anyway, what it's doing, once you do that, it's literally saying, okay, for this, I want you to take this. I want you to take this shape here and do a difference. So it's like saying, take this shape and like just make like I'm gonna collapse this. Yeah, just apply this. I don't know why the hell it's so damn slow. Shouldn't be. Anyway, so it did that. See, so what it did is it literally said make a difference. So make this here. So that's what I did. You can either add your own, like just put your geometry there, and then you can actually just like make your cuts. So like, yeah, like these right here. Like make your cuts, and then you can move your vertices. But if let's say you have like, let's say this right here, which is a lot of vertices, that would take you a while. So what you could do is simply just drag that down. Well, not drag it down, but like just get a shape of your base here. You don't need the whole shape. So let's say I want to do this one. So if I focus over here, you see these right here, you want these to penetrate into that face here. So instead of using this whole shape, what you could do is just make a duplicate, make it into a mesh. Obviously, you can't really do that with curves. So go into edit mode, do a loop. And then you do just you don't have to do nothing major, and then select the edges. So do this, select those edges, 1 for vertices, and then 3, so you can get the faces. Control I, and then you can just delete the faces. And then what you can do is literally just use this for the same operation as that. And then when you're done. When you're done, just take your object and then put it where it's supposed to be. And then, because if you look at this, like if you line this up perfectly with this, that's, oh, I forget. Let's be verses. Oh yeah, that's a curve. Keep forgetting that. So anyway, take that, and then you can like line it up. Right now I'm just holding control down just to line this up. Just showing this, but get the vertices. Yeah, so let's say you have your surface, you finally got it in there, and once you have that, you will attach your mesh that you're interested in attaching to like your object, and then you'll simply just do a merge. So when you're in object mode, you like select your vertices that you want to merge. So let's say like I join those together, and it's like okay, because right now it may look like they're attached, they're not attached. So right now I can select these faces and literally just move them like nothing happened, like they're not attached until you merge them. So if you go in here, select your vertices you wanna match up. So right now I have 32 edges, but right now you should have 64. You should have 64 verts because it makes sense because you're selecting two vertices. You want to make sure you're in X-ray mode because if you want to select like all the vertices, of course you have to see them in X-ray mode, but it's more pertains more to faces. Like, well, I want these faces here, and then you just do that, but you're only selecting what you see. So always go Alt Z, and then go to vertices, and you can literally just do that. And then hold M, and then because we extruded this, they line up perfectly. Just hold M and then do it by distance. And it says remove 32 vertices. Now they're actually attached. So now if you actually drag this, now they're actually like attached to the model. So that's pretty much what I'm gonna be doing here. I can delete that, let's just show that. I kinda like this actually. It just looks cartoony or something. So what you could do also, might think like, well, hell, that's a lot of work. What you could do, because with this, when you finally get everything you want to get done, you could simply just take the faces that you've made cuts to using Boolean, and if you stick to these four vertices, so let's say you finally triangulate your faces here, just take your face and your new geometry and just duplicate it. You can even go a step further and unwrap this. You can even like go a step further and unwrap this, so you don't have to unwrap this like however many times you need to do it. If you unwrap it once, which is pretty much what I'm going to be doing. So you can kind of save yourself the work. Yes. I'm just gonna do this. You. No, that's what it is. Right. And then just select this. You. And then select, and then you can do a loop. Okay, damn it. You. Oh. Oops. Alright, same deal. Select and then loops. Ring, no, not ring, sorry. Ring goes up and down. It's basically an edge parallel or face parallel, and then the loop is going like loop, ring. So I'm going to do a loop and then X, and then you can get rid of these, dissolve the edges. Don't delete them, because I'll get that, whatever this is. Dissolve them. I mean, if there's no need for extra edges, like if something's flat and you saw like all these edges here, if you don't need to have them, then it's like it's best to get rid of them. It's like just because you can add more edges doesn't mean you should. Like there's no point to it. Because I know, like with the Unreal Engine 5, I know they're not focusing too much on poly count, especially when they start talking about, you know, billions of triangles. But you should at least somewhat optimize it. It's okay to go higher up on detail, but yeah, it's just, yeah, it's like just because you can have like a lot of polygons doesn't mean you should purposely add more polygons when you don't need to. Now what I could do is simply take this. I'm gonna be adding it eventually, but just select that. So select the active vertice, G and then Z. Move it in the Z-axis, and then you hold Control, and you can snap it to whatever vertice there is. In this case, right here, so it's nice and flush to this plane. And then I'm not gonna scale it. It's just a pain in the ass. So I'm gonna do is just move this up a little. It's not a humongous change to the model. It's not a huge deal. Let's move that just a tiny bit. All right, so it's nice and flush. So what I like to do. You solve, just make it simple. You. Right now it's not smooth properly, but I'll deal with that in a moment. Okay, got those that I want to loop, select, unless loop, and then we'll dissolve the edges. Deal with that momentarily. I'll just say like, well, maybe I could just, you know, mirror this on the other side. I'm like, that's not gonna work because that's gonna be like really squished on the inside. It's gonna look a little awkward. So what I'm gonna do, just to make this easier, even number, I'm just gonna pick 0.5. So what I'm gonna do is select this. Do a little mini edit here. Let me get rid of these. I'm gonna do some real quick. Make this look a little prettier. At the top here. Right, so I got that. Yeah. Select loop, dissolve edges, or something minor I want to do, just so that. I'm just going to do a little quick edge bevel here before I start working on this polygon here. So we're going to do a bevel edge, and then you can drag it up. By the way, if you have a really small model and it's like, well, it's doing like this, like moving real quick. Like if you have like a super small model, you can hold Shift down, and it'll make it more. Hold Shift down, and it'll make it like more like detailed. Well, not detailed. but it'll be like not as drastic. Like it won't go all the way out real quick. And as always, you can also just type it in. I'm holding shift right now. So if I don't hold shift, it's gonna move real quick or bevel real fast. So maybe like here. You can also add segments. God, no. Why? Yeah, you can also add segments. I'm doing more simple here, but you know, if you put like 3, you know, you ended up with 3 segments. You only had 1 edge, but now it's adding 3 extra edges here. If you have 2, you know, you're adding 2 extra segments. Obviously, if you had 0, then you know, or 1. 0, nothing happens, but yeah, 1 will just be a simple extra edge. So I'm going to do that. Just make it look a little prettier. And see what's cool is instead of like making all these edits here, which would be a little difficult with all these curly cued staircase, spiral staircase. All these spiral staircases, you don't have to worry about like trying to do like cuts and stuff. Well, it's like weirdly angled. You can do it on a nice straight flush angle. So anyway, once I got that, so what I'm going to do now is select the faces that I'm interested in cutting. I'm just going to hit P for parting and then selection, and then just like what I did over here, I'm just going to move on the Y 0.5. So when you're done, all you have to do is literally just type -0.5 and it'll line up perfectly with your vertices, the 4 vertices on each rail here. Now you can even go more extreme if you wanted to do like edits here, because you have the same number of vertices touching this plane here. You can simply just duplicate this and then just move the vertices in place. And you can also do that. That's probably what I'm going to do, actually. All you gotta do is just duplicate it and then simply just shift the face. But never mind. So what I'm going to do is I may duplicate it. I'm just using this. So lift this up, and then what you're going to do is select your most bottom edges. And simply just hit E. I'll just E and Z, and then I'll extrude on the Z. And then we'll just select these faces here. Control I, and then the only ones we're interested. Oop. No, I need that. Yeah. And then delete those. And just like before, we're just gonna intersect it. Just intersect it a little bit. Doesn't matter how far in it goes. It's not gonna make a difference. Then the one that's gonna have the bool operation. Select this. We don't need that. You're gonna do a bool, and then you're gonna I drop this. I know why it disappears by switching to fast. Does that. So once you have that, simply just go to a check mark and apply it. So you see here you got vertices as needed. You don't need this. It's kind of pointless having that. You don't even need these here. So you got this and this. I know the face handles are floating here, but that's because it's averaging it out. But if you do something like this, go to faces, I'll move it over. Because now you actually have a separate face here and another one here. But in games, we all know you can't use n-gons. Actually, you can. It's just the game engine's gonna. The game engine is just gonna guess how to triangulate your mesh, and you don't want the computer to guess. Because everyone knows that computers are great at guessing. So once you have that, so you got 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 vertices, so that's good. And then what you're gonna do is come here. I'm doing it by face here. And then I am just gonna hit G, Z, and then hold Control to do that. I'm not really worried about how it's gonna face because at the end of my modeling, I'll simply do a recalc normals. That's where you go here, select A to select everything, and then I'm gonna turn that off. I want that on. Then Shift N, and then it just recalculates your normals. And it's gonna like do it for all of them. So if it's on the outside, it's basically saying point your normals this way. Because if you import your model into the game and your normals are backwards, you're gonna have polygons that look like they're gone, but they're not. They're facing the wrong way. Game engines are all about efficiency. They're not going to render the backside of a face. So some people might think like their model's missing like polygons. It's not. It's probably the normals are just not there. Alright, and because we did this, I'm just going to go back on Y, minus 0.5. And look at that. It lines up perfectly. So when you join this to this, join this to this, and then eventually all this to that, it lines up right on the dot. So right now, it looks fine here, but obviously if you come up here, for obvious reasons, that's not gonna look right. So just select that, and then just select your vertices, and then you can hold Control down. And then, while you're holding Control, it's gonna snap to the nearest vertice. It's not a big deal here, so. Because it's only like 8 vertices, so it's not a humongous deal. It's an easy thing to do. Yeah, and then this is a little different, so simply just Control and then drag. Oops, there we go. Now, what you could do, once you have all your topology in place, is simply, like I was saying, like maybe you want like one of these every other face. All you gotta do is just duplicate this. So I'm gonna, for now, I'm gonna, this should be fine. So Control A, and do rotation and scale to reset these. Because I'll show you in a second. No, I can't really demonstrate. You want these to be 1 to be normalized, because if you try to do unwrapping, which is for texturing, you might look at your faces that got unwrapped, and you might be like, why is this elongated and stretched? Like, is this a bug in the 3D program? Like, no, it's not. What it's doing is the UVs will take the scale of whatever your scale is set to. If it's set to 1, then you're fine. mark sharp. Here I'll go for seams. So I'll mark those as sharps. Okay, so we got that. Now if you turn the edges off, it's gonna show it like these lines here, because right now they're not connected, so that's why they're showing as like individual faces. But you can notice like the way I connect the faces to the corners here, they're either a triangle or a quad. So a lot of game engines typically like to use triangles because they're the most efficient shape. Think about what happens if you have like a polygon here. Well, not polygon. Because, like I said, game engines are all about efficiency. So that's why it likes to when you import your models, it'll triangulate them. But when you're rendering in real time, like frames per second, FPS, let's say your model is deforming and you lift this vertex up, let's say this edge. You lift this edge up. Now Blender right now is guessing, but looking at this, which way, for the triangles, which way is the face getting cut? Is it going this way or is it going this way? Like I said, game engines are all about efficiency. So it's going to have to guess, but when you import your model, if it's a quad, it's going to do this. So it'll either do it like this, or it's going to do it like this. So now when you move this, the game engine knows exactly which way the triangle faces. Because any point you move on here on this triangle, it's definitive direction. It doesn't have to. There's nothing to cut in half. It's a triangle. That's like the minimum for a shape. What's it doing? Oh yeah. So I'm going to go into UV editor, which is this little tab right up here. What is it? Z and then 6. There you go. So right now, I bet there's probably going to be no UVs on here. Oh, there's. Okay. Must be a new thing. I think previous Blender, if you tried to like do a convert mesh from like a curve, you would go into a UV editor. You do this, you won't see any faces here, and it's like, why not? Because there's no UV channel when you got a curve. So you would have to go here and actually hit the plus sign, and then your faces would be here. But it looks like they fixed that. Well, not fixed it, just you don't have to worry about it. So what you can do now, like I said, so let's say we go on with modeling. We take this, we merge these together, and we duplicate this a bunch of times. When we have to do that, that means when it comes to time to unwrapping, that means you have to unwrap all of these. Well, wouldn't it make a lot more sense to simply unwrap one of these? So that we don't have to do it all over, like 70 edges divided by 235. So instead of doing 70 of these, just unwrap it one time and you're good to go. So there's always a time and place to do a little bit of early UV unwrapping. It just saves you more work to do in the future. So anyway, seams. So right now, if I do like unwrap, which is literally just taking this and it's saying, okay, it's like a soup can. like if you're unwrapping a soup can, it's like essentially taking your faces, making a cylinder. What it's going to do, it's going to make a seam, and then it's going to unwrap it. So it can be used in like Photoshop or any other texturing programs. Because right now, like this won't look right. Like if you try to put wood, let's say this is wooden. Like if you try to put wood on here, you know, just for like the sake of argument, I'm just gonna like go to my shaded view, and then I'm gonna put on a material. I'll put on my checker pattern. Like, let's be honest, like, does this look really like a checker pattern? It's really weird looking and distorted. So that's where you gotta come in here and unwrap this. Now thankfully it looks like it did like majority of the work for us here. I mean, we're a little lucky here, but yeah. Normally you could place seams, but if you select your faces right now, as you notice, as I'm selecting here, it's selecting whatever's in the viewport. It's a little bit harder to see because it's, you know, I'm in shaded mode. But watch what happens when I hit you. OMG, it's not distorted anymore, but it's backwards. I think it's because, no, it's not that. Let's see. Should be backwards. But yeah, it makes it less distorted. Like this looks a lot better. That's why you should always have a checker pattern, especially with numbers, so you can see if there's any sort of weird distortion going on. So right now, because this is a little bit more of a simpler shape, so you can actually just grab, because you can kind of tell this is like all up and down here, with minus the corners, which is these little slivers right here. You select what you need to select and you can unwrap it. So you got those. And then what you could do to save space is select your vertices. You do it in here. I mean, typically, you could put these on top of each other, which might be okay, but it might be okay, but you might want to be careful because sometimes you might have a texture and it might look a little too repetitive. Because, like, watch what happens when I stack these all on top of each other. So once these are all stacked on each other, it saves UV space. This is the UV space here that matters. So whatever you put, like here, this is what's going to be textured on your object. So like it might be okay to do that here. But you might want to be careful because sometimes it could be very repetitive. Like case in point, look what happens. They're all literally the same. So let's say you have like one of these, maybe you want to have one of these with a crack. So let's say you go in here, you go in Photoshop, you paint a crack in the wood, but it's going to be literally the same crack, which is going to look very predictable. So what you could do is just select like whatever faces you want. Like it's okay to like maybe have two groups. Or you can just come here and then just simply pack the islands. Oops. That's actually what happens when you don't wrap them. Or if you have no seams. Diversity. Oh, back in my solid mode. I'm gonna place my seams here. So seams are essentially this. Because you saw when I unwrapped it, it literally treated it as one giant, like, contiguous form, but that's not what we want right now. But if you place your seams, you're basically telling the UV editor, like, okay, we know it's going to end here. Like, we know there's going, like, the faces won't connect here. Like, it'll actually separate. It'll actually make a contiguous form, or a non-contiguous form, like this. But yeah, like if you go into like shaded view here, like if you have like a wood texture, now it will be like, you know, different. So I mean, it's kind of a hit or miss because as you know, like if you see this here, if you have like more contiguous or more shapes here for each side, like the more pieces you have, the smaller these will get, which means your texture might get more pixelated. So it's kind of a trade-off. So once we got that, I'm just gonna move this over because this isn't the final UV. So once we got that, I'm gonna go back into my solid view. I'm not too concerned about these here because I'm gonna kind of unwrap them with this. But you, like we all know, like these are gonna be duplicated. Yeah, that should work. So now what you could do, just for the sake of this readability, what you could even do is just like do like a couple of these and then like maybe like duplicate this over. Like delete these, but then you can simply take like this chunk here, like this here, and then you can simply like just duplicate it a couple of times in edit mode. So I'll probably do that. Do like I don't know. No, give me my faces. I want to make sure I'm duplicating it right because I don't want to like be off a little bit. I'm gonna do up to here. Top view. Take you guys. Oops. Alright, 2, 2. Yeah, I like that. Let's do that. Right. Right. So we're gonna delete these. You. And we're gonna take you. Yeah. You. Join. Find out. No, I did not. Okay. These I know I did not merge. Distance should be 8. 8 vertices. It makes sense when you move 8 vertices because you have 2, 4, 6, 8. Yeah, duplicate vertices, 2 each. Get rid of 1 vertice at each one, which removes 8. That's kind of a good thing to note too. Like if you're like doing like vertice removing and you're merging. Let's say I did vertice removing. It says okay, removed 5 vertices, which is a little weird because like I'm like, what does 5 have to do with 8 here? So usually what it is like you might have a vertice that's like slightly off, and it wasn't. When you merge, the distance was probably like maybe it has to be a little bit more. So that's where you increase this. So if you have a vertice within like 1 meter of each other, it'll merge it. But we're not gonna do that. Alright, so once we got that, I gotta see some too. It's still on, cool. Alright, and then that. I'm just gonna move it. I have the wrong one. Forget it. We're gonna like merge at some point anyway, so let's do that. Oh. Yeah. Yeah, see, it's kind of a great example. See, like, if I select like all these, they got the same UV. So instead of unwrapping all of them, you know, just do it once and you're good to go. Oops. Nope, get rid of that. Alright. You. Nope. Alright. Then, what you're going to do is you're going to take this. The one that's green is, when you hit the Control J, the one that's green is what it's going to be merging to. So we want everything to merge to this, so this should be green. You Control J, we'll put it to this here. Now I just want to see what this looks like. Oh yeah, that's another thing too. Doing that. Don't really need this right now. Nor these edges. Alright. We don't really need those right now. And once it's made, I'm probably gonna have like a post here. So, and that's gonna require some more like cutting and whatnot. Oh yeah, and the other thing too, so I'm just gonna do it from the top because it's easier. Distance. That's my dog you're hearing. So we'll go here. And I see. Select everything, that, go right there. Duplicate that, Control D. I mean, mind you, this is only the outer rail, so it's not like, I don't have anything in there. I just want to see what it looks like. Alright. Good stuff. Yeah, it should do. Alright, so do that. Control J. And you get this. Now see, it looks a lot better because the geometry is actually connected. Now there's a little line here because I didn't merge anything, but yeah, I'm gonna stop recording here. I'll be doing more in the future, but yeah, I see.